because I've got a message for the world that Christians can get a quick turnaround in their marriage, even if counseling hasn't worked, even if your spouse isn't on board, and even if you're the only one trying. On today's video, I'm going to give you the secret sauce of what we do inside Turnaround Marriage. It dawned on us years ago when we decided to build something alternative to traditional counseling to help Christians turn their marriage around quickly. It dawned on us that if we could teach people how to apply the two greatest commandments, everything could change in their marriage. What are those two greatest commandments? Well, Jesus said to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. This is from Mark 12, when the scribes and Pharisees came to him and asked him, what is the greatest commandment? He said there's two. One is like the other one. Okay, so what does that mean? What do you mean? How does that relate to Christian marriage? Well, let me explain. When you can learn to love God with your heart, that's your emotional center, right? That is where we house our feelings. If you think about, the heart has traditionally meant like the emotional state that you carry around. It is impossible to heal a Christian marriage when there's been resentment and anger and bitterness, and those are festering in the heart. We've got to get out of that emotional state so that repair can happen. And so loving God with your heart would mean learning to shift your emotional state even before your circumstances change. You heard me right, even before your circumstances change. Think about, if you could learn how to get the resentment, how to, instead of just suppressing it, instead of just pushing it down, if you could learn to go straight toward it and feel it and lean into it and move right through it, and then tap into joy and peace and empathy and compassion, which is totally possible, everything can change. Because as you love God with your heart, it's like you can now, from this place of peace and joy and hope, now repair can happen. Now we can have an honest conversation. Now we can work toward rebuilding trust and deep connection again. Okay, so that's loving God with your heart. Now, what about loving God with your mind? You've got to learn how to take your thoughts captive. The Bible has so much to say about minding our mind, right? About having the mind of Christ, about think about the things that are true and pure and lovely and of good report. If in our mind, we are rehearsing and rehashing all the painful ways that our marriage has been disappointing or dysfunctional, if we are ruminating and thinking about, he'll never change, she's such a nag, I'll never be enough, if we keep rehearsing those tapes about God must have not wanted us to get married, I guess I married the wrong person, all of these lies from the enemy now are a way that we can't even begin to think about how to repair our marriage. So learning to take those thoughts captive and to rewire the way we're thinking about ourselves, our spouse, and our marriage, things can change, because that's how we love God with our mind. Then think about loving God with your soul. What does that mean? It means who you are deep down in your identity. If deep down you see yourself as a mistake, as, man, my parents got divorced, so I should have never been here. Or deep down you think, well, I guess I'm just unlovable. No one loves me, not even God. If you deep down think, well, I guess I'm just an utter failure. I can't figure this marriage thing out. In your identity, what you've got to do is learn how to step into the full version of who God says you are, with his strength and power. He did not create you to just flounder and struggle. He created you to have victory, to be an overcomer. That is who he says you are. So when you can learn to upgrade who you're being in your marriage, everything can change. Now, think about loving God with your strength. When we think about strength, I think about your physical body, right? We're walking around in these bodies that are stressed out. We are undernourished. We have not enough sleep. We are maxed out. What if we could tune into our nervous system? What if we could actually love God with our body and our strength by taking care of this beautiful body he gave us, rather than loathing it every time we look in the mirror? What if we could take care of our nervous system and notice when we get triggered and when we get off kilter and when we're in fight or flight? And what if we could learn to settle our nervous system down? What do you think could happen in your marriage? Repair, connection, intimacy, healing can happen. So that's what we do inside Turnaround Marriage, is teaching people how to love God with their heart, their mind, their soul, and their strength. And then the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. Who's your first neighbor? When you're married, it is your spouse. So learning how to love your neighbor as yourself, learning how to love your spouse as yourself, that requires understanding how they're wired. They're wired differently than you. Can I say it louder for the people in the back? There are real differences between men and women, physiologically, biologically. I know I probably will get canceled for this, but there are real, actual differences. You can't treat your husband the way you treat your girlfriends and expect him to be okay with it. Husbands, you can't treat your wife like one of your bros and expect her to feel safe and secure with you. And so learning to love your neighbor as yourself requires learning how they're wired, what their tendencies are, what their weaknesses are, what their strengths are, what they need, and how to meet those needs, so that as you love your neighbor the way that you love yourself, everything can change. And that's what we do inside of our Turnaround Marriage programs. We've got lots of different ways to help Christians who are in crisis. Everything from a mini course that's $500, mid programs, and then all the way up to executive programs that are up to $10K. We've got offers all the way in between, because we know that if you have a mentor, if you have a roadmap, and if you have accountability and support, and if you have tools to be able to do those things, everything can change in your marriage, even if you're the only one willing to go first. So if you're struggling, and if you realize you need a holistic approach and you want biblical effective help, reach out, send me a DM or comment masterclass below, and I'll send you the 5 simple shifts Christians can make to get a complete turnaround in their marriage. Let's talk soon.